Hello, friends. Welcome back. Hope you've all had a good lunch. Yeah? Good? How can you not know it was 3 discs? Everybody knows that. Okay, so today's session, we've got an hour, and I want to spend it on the web. Because, as I mentioned in the keynote, we have made loads of investments to make sure that the web just works. And that's pretty much going to be the tagline for this hour. So one of the key things that Microsoft has been very keen to do is to listen. Matter of fact, we heard so much feedback about what people wanted. Windows 10 is primarily developed based on feedback. And I want to talk to you about the 3 key feedbacks that we got about our web platform. 1 is more interoperability. That's difficult to say, even in English. 2, new features. And 3, less boundaries between web and native apps. So let's start with more interoperability. So going on the cold quiz theme, 44 billion. Does anyone know roughly what 44 billion means? 44 billion is the number of websites in the world. Obviously, we don't use all of them, but they're there. Another number, trillions. Who knows what trillions could refer to? Let me give you a clue. Trillions, that's the number of URLs that Bing crawls to make sure that we always serve up the correct content. So you can tell the web's been around a bit to get a trillion. Matter of fact, 20 years, based on our reckoning, in 1995. I took a picture with someone earlier, and I believe he wasn't born in 1995. So this is the first version of IE. But also, 20 years ago, we had Windows 95. I don't know if anyone knows Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in Korea, but we have a few other things that were around 20 years ago. And as the web evolved, we created Internet Explorer 6. And you can see here we have the Trident engine with Quirks mode to make sure that the web prior to Internet Explorer 6 still worked. But we had another mode which allowed doc types, which then allowed you to make sure that you got the best of the web in that arena. And then we got to Internet Explorer 9. We added another engine for IE8. And we use the UA-compatible flag to help web developers determine this. Then we went to IE9. We added more in our engine. Then we went to IE10. We added more in our engine. Then we went to IE11, and now we've got 8 engines in one browser. But the thing is, this is not just typical for IE. As a matter of fact, if you have a look at some of the statistics we have here, you'll see that for a web developer, the choices are actually quite difficult sometimes, because every platform, every browser has loads of different versions and different engines. And even if we look at the mobile, for instance, where we have Chromium, you can see that even Chromium on a mobile platform has a large range of forks. And in essence, up until you're targeting 18 and above, you don't always get the market share. So this in itself is a challenge. So Microsoft decided that there's 20 years of engine in IE, but we came up with Edge. Edge is essentially the one browser that works across all the Windows 10 devices family. What this means is whether you're on a phone, a tablet, a PC, you get the same web rendering engine regardless. And I've only shown 3 devices here, but that does also include IoT, HoloLens, and Surface Hub. So one of the things we're now doing in Edge is to make sure that it's always up to date. We have still the Edge HTML engine and the Chakra engine, both on the desktop and the client. And the key line here to make sure that we sort of take away is the web should just work with Edge. We want to make sure that it stays competitive with all the modern browsers out there. In fact, one thing we noticed was a lot of websites use user agent sniffing. So what Edge does, rather than just say we're going to remain interoperable, we also make sure it's about reading your content correctly. So you can see here, these are the browsers, and these are the user agent strings. And notice that Edge now is very similar to some of the other browsers. Mozilla 5 seems to be very popular. Does anyone still use Mozilla 5? But yeah, all the browsers still sort of mimic them. And you'll see here that actually, whether you're rendering content for Firefox or Chrome or Safari, Edge actually will always make sure that it always catches that browser first. So I want to give you an example. So I don't know if many of you have been to Seattle. There's a thing in the sky called the sun. Seattle does not see the sun. It rains a lot. We don't see much. So everyone in Seattle goes to Hawaii. Now, if we go to the Hawaiian Airlines website, we will see in Firefox, it renders, but we have scroll bars. Safari on the mobile actually renders pretty well, so you can tell, that's a good place to be. Then we have Internet Explorer. Now, the good thing about Internet Explorer is it rendered everything, but you can't read it. It's not usable. But thanks to the changes that we've made in the user agent string, you'll see that Edge now renders the same as Safari on the mobile. So the second thing I want to talk about are new features. Because although we've added 4,200 new interoperable features to Edge, we've actually included hundreds of new standard features. And the nice thing about Edge is now we are only looking after one engine. Not 8, just 1. This means we can get features out faster. And in fact, sometimes they're so fast, it's difficult to keep up to date. So we now have status.modern.ie, which will show you all the features that are coming in Edge. And I actively encourage all the web developers to visit this website. You will see what's in development, what's proposed, and more importantly, you can add your own feedback to this. You can ask questions, and you can make sure that your opinion is heard on whether you feel one feature is more important than another. So let's quickly go to a demo. Make sure I've got the right machine. Okay. So this is actually a project made by some guy in GitHub, and it's kind of interesting. So this is demoing HTTP 2. Now, I'm sure many of you will probably remember the internet. And who had a 56K modem? This was pretty popular, right? Everyone saw images load like this. Well, the good thing is, Edge is also supporting some of the new HTTP2 standards. So even if we select a 1 latency demo, notice that instead of rendering linearly, it's going to render in batches. That is still with the 1 second latency. The only key difference here is how we now decide to load all those images. It's no longer in sequence. I also want to show you something else. Now, this demo might not be so exciting, but maybe I can show you a demo that is. So, let's make sure we've got sound up. So actually, let me take this demo. Let's actually launch this in Edge. No one's afraid of ghosts or anything, right? I should probably check, because if you are, now's a good time to look away. So what I want to show you here is going to be using Babylon.js, a 3D JavaScript engine. It's using web audio. Hopefully the sound's loud enough. And I'm going to show you that even rendering such complex scenes, such complex sounds, I can still get 60 frames a second without a problem. So let's go driving around here. So you can see it's pretty fast, pretty fluid. And let's see if we can get The guys at the back of the stage can make sure there's audio is turned up on this machine. I want to take you to my favorite bit. So you can see here we have some juice stones about IE6. That's always good. Yeah. Schrodinger's cat. Clippy. Something a bit more Shakespearean. Cool. But let me see if I can do this. So I get a feeling we're not going to get any sound from... No. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Let's try switching the machine. I just want to make sure, because this is cool. This is cool. Let me switch to number 4. Let's see if the guys can give me sound. Okay. Let's see if it's... Am I getting sound? Wrong machine. They all look the same, it's difficult. All right, hold on. Let's try this again. Remember, the web just works, but presentations don't. All right, let's try this again. All right, so we got sound. So when I first ran this demo, I actually thought there was really a bumblebee flying around. Yeah? That's from a website. This is nothing, crazy. We're using normal JavaScript. But Edge just makes this work beautifully. And you can see it's pretty much very similar to the Gopher tile demo, just as interesting, right? Okay, cool. Enough playing around with that. Cool. Let me flip. So, I've shown you some of the cool things that you can do with Edge. And one of the things that we're adding is the about flags as well, to make sure that actually, when you're trying new JavaScript frameworks, rather than having to change your code with vendor specifics, you can now just use these checkboxes to make sure that your web sites just load nicely, even with experimental things. So the next thing, the third piece of feedback, was less boundaries between web apps and native apps. So what we really mean here is, sometimes we'd find that web apps would render differently to some of the native apps. And people always said, oh, this doesn't always feel right. I always have to write code to make sure things just work on both. Well, not anymore. The reason why, because we are now having the same engine that powers Microsoft Edge, the browser, is also powering web apps. It means that everything will render the same. So we have 3 main types of apps. So we have the package content. So this is the offline apps. This is similar to what we talked about in the keynote about Cordova. We'll have hosted content, which I'll talk more about, which is always up to date. And then we have that hybrid scenario. This is where you have a native app, but sometimes you want to expose website content. And a web view is a really good way to do that. So let's firstly talk about packaged apps. So we know a lot of people use Cordova. It's fantastic. And now what we're doing to make sure that people get the best and richest development experience, Visual Studio now has great intelligence, and you get all the rich debugging experiences that you're normally used to, even with Cordova. We're even providing all the emulators. Now let's talk about the web view. So the nice thing about the web view is, as mentioned, it uses the Edge engine, so you'll get speed. It's got improved responsiveness and performance, and the main reason why is because the web view now no longer renders on the UI thread. This means that you'll get blistering fast performance without UI hangs. We also have a way to improve the communication with the web view and your native app. This makes interoperability between the two great. And the final thing I want to mention is, even in the web view, you have access to the full Windows runtime APIs. So if you want to add toast notification like we did with Flight Arcade earlier this morning, that is all possible. So let me walk you through very quickly what this slide is showing. So in essence, we have some code. And one thing to note here is all this code resides on the server. Yeah? It's not necessarily always client. And what you can do is from the web view, you can then go and access those particular APIs. So in this case, we're doing a toast notification that just says, hello world. But that's great. You've probably played with the web view. I actually want to introduce you to something more new and unique to our platform. Hosted content, always up to date. We want to make sure that you can reuse the initial investment of your code that's on your website. And one of the key ways to do that is to make sure that you can take that content, build it into a universal web app, and then go and publish that to the store. You can use your JavaScript in your website to go and call these APIs. So I'm going to show you a quick demo. Now, the nice thing about this demo is it's actually not that difficult to do. So let me do this. Switch that. All right. So let's do this. I want to show you this website. This website's all about JavaScript libraries. Which one's your favorite? You just heart it, or you cross it if you don't like it. So I'm going to load up Visual Studio here. They say never do live code demos in front of an audience. I'll keep my fingers crossed. Right. So here I'm going to select a JavaScript project. And I'm going to select a Windows Universal one with a blank app. I'm just going to probably put this there. And then go. Folder name is invalid. No. Select. And I'm going to call it app2 because it sounds like a good name. And we won't add it to source control. Cool. So, like with all good projects, the first thing you do is delete the content. All right, so I don't really have much left. Well, you can see actually all I have is just the images, and these are the images that you get for the logos. So let me go to this package manifest. And this is where the beauty of a hosted web app comes. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my browser. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to say, I want your default page to go here. And then in my applications, what you can do is you can set a bunch of rules. These rules decide where the content comes from. Who needs code snippets? I'm going to say, how much is that? Type. So I'm going to say, if the URL matches this, allow that content. And I'm going to say, I want you to include the content, not exclude it. And the final thing, if I did want to allow those runtime API access through my app, I just set to all. At this point, I sit and pray this works. So let's do this. That there is now a Windows app. I only just took my website, and that was it. I want to make it very clear, I do not want to see a load of these store apps that just look like your website. Make sure you tailor it so it looks beautiful. Okay, cool. Now let's jump back. Apologies, it's like a yo-yo doing this demo. Right, cool. But I showed you a very simple example. If you wanted to, you could actually add Cortana integration. So you can see here, very simply, again, it's all server-side. You should not be adding any client code. You just do exactly what I've done there, but you add this code. And you can see here, all I'm just doing is using the Cortana APIs and waiting for it to be activated. And then once it's activated, from there I do a speech recognition to see what the user has asked for. And that's pretty much it. But the thing is, we just don't want to make sure that it's a Microsoft-specific standard, otherwise we'll be back in IE 6 days. So what we're doing is we're working with the W3C, who's going to make a manifest standard, and this manifest standard will be across all browsers. This will then make sure that when you decide to build your application, all the logos and everything will be correct based on whatever's in this manifest. So I want to introduce you to a couple of tools that we've built to help you make sure you get the best of the web. So I'm going to go back and flick to my machine. We'll just close this down. It's not a developer conference if we don't have a load of dev stuff, right? So, next one. Yeah. Cool. So what I want to do is I want to take this existing website that we had before, the Tinder.js one, but I just don't want to build a Windows package. What I really, really want to do is I want to build a package that's going to work cross-platform. I want it to make sure it works on Android, on iOS, on Windows 10, Windows 8, everywhere. And this is basically what Manifold.js allows you to do. So let me go here. So Manifold.js is a new tool that we've introduced. You can install it via Node. Yeah, we're using an npm package manager. And in essence, let's just do this first so you get an idea of what you sort of can do. So you can see there you have quite a few options. You can choose your platforms, you can choose the amount of logging you want, and you can choose the way you want to build this. So I'm going to try taking my website. I'm going to have it logging. I'm going to set a debug build. So what I want to show you now, I'm going to squeeze that in the corner. As I run this, it's going to create a folder in here, and you'll start seeing that it's going to create all the various packages. So let's do that. Let's minimize that. Open this. You can see already it started building some of them. And let's see, still going. So now you can see, with just a simple command line, I was able to generate a package using my website for Android, for Chrome, for iOS, for Windows 10, for Windows 8, Firefox, and the web. And that was all just using one tool. Now, okay, if that doesn't impress you, let's try and do something that will. The next tool is going to be Verlon.js. Now, some of the challenges we have, so let me close this. Here's one I made earlier. This is the web app. This was also built using Manifold.js. Just going to put that there. So Verlon, let's see if we can get. Let me try loading this up again. If not, we'll do a quick switch. Okay, here you go. Okay, so you can see here on the client list here, I've got Windows 0. And if I select that and go identify client, you can see a big zeros appeared here. This is so I can work out what's happening and which one I'm playing with. So I'm sure you've all used the developer tools on your website where you've been able to look at the DOM and change things, right? How cool would it be if I could do that with my application? So I could change the DOM and in essence then look to see how that affects my application. Well, actually, that is exactly what Vorlon.js does. So here you can see I've got the whole DOM. And like before, you can see if I click things, I can change it. And you also have all your properties on the side. So let's change something here. This probably won't render very good. We actually do love ASP.NET. I want to make it very clear. But in essence, that is for Vorlon.js. So let me quickly flick back to my slides. So this is just a taster of what's available with our new web platform. And going further, what we'd like is your feedback. We're always listening to help us understand which direction you'd like our browsers to go. So please definitely visit dev.modern.ie, dev.windows.com for some more of our developer platform Windows Runtime APIs, the Cordova website, so you can help build cross-platform tools. And the two links you see at the bottom there are the links for Vorlon and Manifold.js. So with that, I would like to finish and say thank you very much for your time.